First of all, thank you so much to all of you who have sent in your personal stories and footage. We try to feature as many as we can, and we apologise that we're unable to show them all. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at some creepy images and some terrifying experiences sent in by our viewers. As with all these videos, these are genuine stories of paranormal or unexplained phenomena. If you're a returning Top 5s viewer, you've probably heard us rave about our connections with Magellan TV, the premier streaming service for the most in-depth content regarding true crime and various other genres. You've been told about their exclusive documentaries and engrossing television shows, and how they evolve the way you watch true crime by pairing their titles with other interesting subjects, such as time travel or the occult or medical mysteries. No matter what your interests, you'll always have something to watch, and you'll always have something to learn. To give you an inside scoop on what type of content awaits you within the Magellan TV library, we want to highlight one of our favourite titles we've watched recently, one that we know will make you sign up for Magellan TV if you haven't already. This week, we want to highlight the docuseries The Brain That Changes Itself, a 2-part medical mystery program that unveils the recent discoveries made regarding the human brain and how we understand its underlying functions. When you think of brain disorders that have long stumped medical experts, you think of Alzheimer's, or something more mental like schizophrenia, all phenomena that have caused unbelievable amounts of pain and torment that researchers haven't been able to fully explain. But what if we told you there was light at the end of the tunnel? That's one of our favourite aspects of this show, how it provides hope for the future, while not becoming too sentimental or fictional. It also frames the programme like a mystery waiting to be solved, giving us a unique perspective on how complex and amazing the human body is. It's the perfect mix of education and investigation, exactly how we create our own videos on Top 5s. The Brain That Changes Itself is also a new release, part of Magellan TV's 15 to 20 hours of brand new content they will add to their library each week, guaranteeing even the most devoted of fans with something fresh to jump into and explore. So stop waiting, use the link in the description to access a free month trial, and jump into the jaw-dropping history of The Brain That Changes Itself and other top-notch series. You'll be sure to find your next great escape. Now, hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. School Ghost. Chris is currently a police officer in the United Kingdom, but in his previous job he worked for a private security firm and would occasionally be called out to alarm responses at various locations on the outskirts of London. Most of the call-outs were either hoaxes or due to animals or bugs moving in front of a motion sensor. However, on one particular night, Chris was told by his control room that there was a motion sensor alarm activation at a Hare Krishna primary school. It was a fairly routine call for Chris, except that he hadn't been there before. Chris arrived at roughly 2 AM. It was pitch black and pouring with rain. The school itself was huge, with around 20 classrooms which circled a central courtyard with a large shrine in the centre. Once Chris entered the property and silenced the alarm, he turned the building lights on. When he checked the alarm panel, it showed multiple motion sensor activations, as if someone had been walking around the building. Chris walked through the school and noticed that all the interior doors were wide open. He proceeded to check each room and office, and noticed that there were no footprints or animal prints, which was odd as it had been raining all night and the building was surrounded by muddy fields, and he himself was leaving a trail with his muddy boots. After checking the whole building, he confirmed no one was there and nothing had been disturbed, so he just assumed the school staff had left the interior doors open and something benign had triggered the alarm. Chris reset the alarms and left the premises after making sure all the lights were off, all the doors were closed, and all exterior points of entry were locked and secured. Then at around 3:30 AM, Chris got another call from the control room saying you'll never guess what. Chris instantly knew it was the school again. As he left to deal with the call out, his colleague called and said he would come to the school as he was used to figuring out faults with alarm panels and resetting them. The pair arrived at 4 AM. It was still dark and pouring with rain. The first thing Chris noticed was that all the lights had been turned on again. Chris and his colleague entered the building and silenced the alarm, and once again it was showing multiple motion sensor activations. Looking down the corridor, Chris noticed that all of the interior doors which had previously closed were now open again. Thinking that someone was playing a prank, they decided to look through the CCTV footage. The system was motion activated, so it would only have recorded when motion was detected. As they looked through the footage, Chris could see himself recorded on the previous call out, showing him moving through the property, securing it and leaving. After a few minutes, the recording stopped. The next recording showed all of the doors open with all the lights on. Chris and his colleagues were shocked, but they had a job to do and moved through the school and secured it. This time, not just by closing but locking the interior doors. But as they walked through the building, they got a strange feeling as if they were not welcome and that something was watching them. It's worth pointing out that Chris and his colleague were used to checking out creepy abandoned buildings with no problem, but this place felt ominous. The two men did their job and left. A few days later, Chris was speaking with an older man who had been with the company for years and was about to tell him what happened at the school. But as soon as he mentioned the school name, the guy said, "Have you seen the ghost too?" He explained that years ago, when he went there for an alarm call, he saw a black shadow the size of a man floating down one of the corridors. He was so scared that he refused to ever go back there. Comfort after tragedy. This next photograph was sent in by a viewer who wishes to remain anonymous, so we'll call him X. X and his family suffered a devastating accident in 2021, which resulted in the deaths of both his parents, along with 3 other people. For X's grandmother, it was almost unbearable, as it was the second child she had lost. To help her take her mind off the tragic events, X convinced his grandmother to go with his aunt and her family on a camping trip. During the trip, X's auntie took a picture of his grandmother, sitting in a chair eating. However, when they later looked at the photo, they noticed something strange in the background. To the family, it looks like a couple with arms around each other's shoulders, sitting behind Grandma. And the only explanation they can think of is that it's the spirit of X's parents. Now, we have seen this before, after a loved one has died, and it often brings comfort to the bereaved families, to think their relatives are still looking out for them after they've passed. And we hope that for X and his family, this is the case. Our heart goes out to them. Teshia. Teshia is a subscriber and Patreon, and she sent this next photo to us of her dog in a fancy dress. It's easy to get distracted by how cute the dog is, but if you look in the background, there is something strange going on. Teshia has no idea what that is, as there was nothing on the chair at the time, and finds it hard to believe it could be a glitch in the camera, because it was taken with a brand new Note 20 phone. When Teshia zoomed in on the anomaly, she was even more shocked, as there is a definite face-like image. The photo was taken in Teshia's apartment in Portland, Oregon. The block is super old, and ever since they moved in about a year ago, strange things have happened there. They regularly hear knocks on the closet doors, and numerous other unexplained noises in the living room. Also, the dog barks and acts aggressively at nothing, which is very out of character for her. However, perhaps the creepiest thing happened when Teshia's dad stayed over and slept on the living room couch. The next day, he told her that he saw a woman in the reflection of the TV. She was standing behind him, holding up 5 fingers. Could that same mystery woman have something to do with the anomaly in the photograph? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Creepy stay in the UK. This next spooky story was sent in by a viewer who wishes to remain anonymous, so we'll call him N. In 2016, N and his family visited the UK from the Middle East to get some passport issues sorted out. Whilst in the UK, they lived in a small house built in the garden of one of their relatives. The house was open plan with 1 big bed, 2 sofas, a makeshift kitchen and 1 bathroom. N never liked being in the house, as it always felt tense, as if there was a presence watching him. A lot of strange things happened whilst they stayed in the house, but one stood out in particular. It was around 10 PM and the family were getting ready to go to bed. Because the place was so small, N and his brother slept on the floor and on the sofas. By around 11:30, everyone was asleep, except N. He couldn't sleep as something didn't feel right. He tried falling asleep multiple times, but it was no use. After about 20 minutes, N turned his head towards the makeshift kitchen area, and there in a gap between 2 of the cupboards was a person who appeared to be glowing white. It was crouched down with its knees tucked into its chest and was rocking slowly back and forth. N rubbed his eyes in disbelief, thinking he was imagining something, but when he looked again it was still there. At this point he felt a wave of nausea, and suddenly the figure moved and started staring right at him, and its eyes turned from white to red. En was so scared he was shaking and hid under the covers, hoping that whatever it was would go away. As he hid, his mother woke up and started praying very loudly and crying. This woke up En's brothers, and they all got up to see what was going on. When En finally came out from under the blanket, the white figure was gone, but his mother was still shaken with fear and could barely talk. She later put it down to a terrifying nightmare. After the incident, En's grandmother came to stay, and she too experienced a similar terrifying nightmare and a force on her that she had never felt before. En thinks he may have an explanation to why these things happen in the house. Before the small house was built, there was an old shed on the site. It had long been neglected and was hardly used, but strange sounds were often heard coming from inside the shed, and it had the reputation of being haunted. The shed was demolished to make way for the house, and in doing so disturbed whatever was lingering inside the shed. En believes it could be those disgruntled spirits that are responsible for what he and other members of his family have experienced when staying in the house. Who's that creepy face in the window? This next image was sent in by Jen from Pennsylvania. A few years ago, Jen and her friends were hanging out at her house, and Jen's mother took a photograph of them. At the time, they didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. Then about a year later, one of Jen's friends was looking at the photo and noticed something peering through the window. Take a look. Jen has told us that there is no way someone could have been standing looking through the window from outside, as it's too far off the ground and she has no idea whose face it is. Understandably, realizing that somebody might be spying on her has completely freaked Jen out. She has always felt something odd about the house, and has often heard people walking up the stairs when there is no one there, and just a general eerie feeling about the place. It's worth noting that the house is located in the coal region of Pennsylvania, and is close to where an old coal breaker used to be. The area is well known as a place where Molly Maguires were active. The Molly Maguires were an Irish 19th century secret society known for their activism among Irish American and Irish immigrant coal miners in Pennsylvania, and after a series of violent conflicts, 20 suspected members of the Molly Maguires were convicted of murder and other crimes and were executed by hanging in the late 1800s. Could it be that members of the Molly Maguires still linger in spirit form, and that is who is peering through the window? So that's 5 creepy stories and images sent in by our awesome subscribers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for another creepy video.